Let's talk oil and gas prices. I mean, surely anyone that uses oil or gas or home heating fuel of any sort must at least recognize that there was this weird, even if you don't pay attention to any of the news regarding this topic, you must at least recognize that there was a stage in the game late last year where oil prices, or gas prices, I should say, even if you weren't paying attention to the price of oil per barrel, you've seen where the gas prices just started going down and down and down and down and down. Then they reached a certain point for most of Canada that was in the 80 plus cent range. And then they rebounded. And then they've slowly and gradually kept going up very incrementally. And then down a little bit, and then up and down. But we're now at a point where you're looking at 20 plus cents. So for the most of Canada, over $1 per liter. And people must be wondering, well, why is that? Well, I mean, I suppose if you don't pay any attention, it just seems, well, that's just the way it is, right? But people like myself do pay attention and understand the fundamentals of what happened, how that's correlated, why it happened, the reasoning for the drop, and the reason why we're now at over $1 a liter. For those of you who don't know, listen up. Some more free education for you. Now, starting last year, the OPEC countries, the cartel as they're called, by all the media, and you'll just type in oil cartel, you'll see OPEC, 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 OPEC. So they're basically admitting that for decades and decades, the countries, the oil-producing nations of the world, the dominant oil-producing nations of the world, were price fixing all the time. Because they can, when you can limit and restrict the supply of any commodity or any product, that's price manipulation. So that on its own proves to you there's no such thing as actual free market forces or economics involved when you're talking about the price of crude. Now, you also must be aware that after, I believe it was the Bretton Woods Agreement or whatever, after World War II, that all oil bought, sold, and traded around the world is priced in the U.S. currency, the U.S. dollar. So the U.S. has an automatic advantage, regardless of high prices, low prices, because everyone has to use their currency. Everyone in the world has to use U.S. currency or a reflection of the price of the U.S. currency to trade or barter or sell oil on the market. Now, Western countries were pretty much aligned with the OPEC countries for price fixings because they benefit from it for the most part. But once tensions began to ensue, and especially after the financial crisis, well, you see what has happened. Whether it's U.S. shale, the Canadian oil sands, offshore drilling in Newfoundland, look around the world. Everybody now is trying to become a major oil exporter and producer. That black gold is valuable stuff. But anyways, so you have OPEC that was the price fixer, but they've decided, while they were doing that and keeping prices elevated, what they weren't quite recognizing, that with elevated prices, the oil sands producers and U.S. shale were having a field day. They were just like awesome because the prices were so high that they could invest huge amounts of capital into bringing on more sources of oil and gas and still be able to reap massive amounts of profits. But because of that, the OPEC countries were seeing their market share being marginalized and reduced as a consequence of that. They could produce their oil at much, much reduced prices compared to, the oil sands, right? Especially the oil sands in Canada, which is one of the most expensive methods to extract bitumen or raw oil products from the tar sands, the oil sands, whatever you want to call it. So they realized that, whatever that had happened, they realized, okay, we got to stop this price fixing because we're losing market share as a result. So they basically said, okay, that's it. No restrictions on the production levels. Let's just pump away, man, pump away. And of course, supply and demand, the fundamentals of supply and demand automatically kicks in to the point where, okay, the more you produce, if it's above demand, the more you produce it above demand, that's going to be reflected in the price because it means there's a glut of that particular commodity and there's not as much demand. So you have to sell that at a reduced price to increase the sales, right? Simple fundamentals here. And that's what started happening. Once they said, okay, all hands off, we're going to let the market forces dictate the price of the oil, even though there's still little levers and tricks that central planners can use. But you've seen what happened. Shoo, price just started dropping off like a cliff. But then the central planners, your collectivist overlords, they started intervening. That's why, even though oil right now, even today, is at, what was it, $38 per barrel? Back when they were fixing the prices, oil price per barrel was up 110, what? I forget the maximum peak was, but it could have been up $1.25, $1.30, or $130 per barrel. Now we're down to $38 per barrel. At our peak price per gas, right? So think about it. When it was at the peak of, say, $125 per barrel, what were we paying for gas in Canada? In central Canada predominantly, let's just say it was like $1.30, $1.40 at most. Well, now the price has tumbled from $125 per barrel to $39. So think of how much of a reduction that is. It's like a third, basically. Even a little bit less than a third, but let's just go with a third. So that means really the correlation to the price of gasoline, the final end product, should be at least that low as well. So, when you're looking at $38 per barrel, the price of gas per liter in Canada should reflect that same correlation of, adjusting for the price drop. So we should be paying really, 50 cents per barrel? Maybe less than that? Or, per liter? But do you see that happening? No. Well, I'm going to post a chart. I'll do it actually right now in the video. I'll edit the picture into the video so that you can actually see it with your eyes. And I'll even try to post a link. I'll post a link to it in the description underneath the video so you also can go in and look at the whole thing yourself, save it, copy it, study it. But you'll see where the divergence happened after the financial crisis and how it diverged once again when the price started to drop. That basically allowed the big oil industry in Western countries to maintain their high profits even when the price of oil per barrel has dropped and just off a cliff to the point where it's only worth like a third of what it used to be. You're going to see it. And I even stretched it out as far as 10 years so you can watch back from 10 years ago till today and see how that all worked out. Yeah, big data in some aspects can work for us. It can be negative when fused by governments, central planners to control, dictate, narrate our lives, our livelihoods. But it can also be used to show, to be proof of just how much manipulation happens and how there's no such thing as an actual genuine free economy. Actual, real, true capitalism happening. Because every time there's even the slightest hint of genuine market forces taking control, some central planner somewhere says, and they intervene to control and manipulate things to suit them. at the cost of everyone else. I need you all to start paying attention to this stuff. I really, really do. I can't be, one of very few that's doing all the footwork, all the investigation, all the, I can't be the one that you expect to do everything here. Or even when I do. It's pretty important that you show a little respect for the work I've done and to giving you this information for free, I might add. So at the very least, I expect, could you share with others so that they can learn too? Because nothing's going to change if you all just remain blissfully ignorant to the facts. How can you possibly expect anything to change if you're trying to put that burden and rest that burden on the shoulders of such few? I'm a pretty strong dude, but I can't take on everything. I just can't do it by myself. I suppose there'll be some collectivists out there saying, see, you need a whole lot of it. Listen, I'm an individual. The individual is the most important minority on the planet. But I've never in my entire life said that we don't need to work together, that we don't need to coexist and cohabitate and form, peaceful societies and intellectually enlightened societies, people with proper morals, ethics, and principles that are universal to all. I've never once said that. See, this is the problem with collectivists. They don't understand that you can still be an individual that works inside a group. But you have to recognize the fact that an individual is an autonomous being. A collective, they don't look at the individual as an autonomous being. They just look at that as part of the collective. So there's nothing wrong with being an individual working inside a group. Be part of my group. We're not a collective. We're just individuals working as a group. We can have varying preferences and even ideologies as far as like what we practice in our own personal life. But they all have to adhere, no matter what. They all have to adhere to the same fundamental principles, just like science, just like math, geology. There has to be some foundational principles that can't be strayed from. Otherwise, it's just a free-for-all, throw your hands in the air, and just relent to the power of mysticism or collectivism. And if you get to that point, I'm at the point that's like, well, then just choose one or the other. Stop playing that gray area. If you believe in collectivism fully and wholly, then go that route and let's hit rock bottom. Let the proof come out that that's a terrible, devastating model, not just for economics but for social aspects as well. But go that route so that you will hit rock bottom, so that you will realize at that point in time that, yeah, we got to give up on this shit because it's devastating for everybody. Even though people who report or pretend to support it. Are we really willing to keep going along and letting these central planners, these collectivists, your overlords, your corporate and political overlords just keep manipulating you? I mean, think about it. When you work, all that extra cost means your labor is going to them. You're more indebted, more enslaved by these higher prices that you have to pay needlessly. You won't be able to save for your retirement. You won't be able to spend that extra money, maybe to get yourself a better home, maybe some new furniture that you desperately need, whatever it might be. Better food, feed yourselves better. All that's being degraded because of this shit. And don't fall for the leftist ideology or the propaganda or the rightist ideology or propaganda. Use common sense, logic, and reasoning from now on as the guiding stone for your understanding on social and economic affairs. If you do that, and reduce, not just reduce your dependency on oil, because that's the thing, we all need oil to exist in this modern world. It's foundationally important Those who pretend it's not are just living in a delusion, in dreamland. They don't actually acknowledge reality for what it is. Trying to wean us off oil or turn environmentalism as the most important thing instead of human sustainability, I mean, that's just bullshit. It's counterproductive. We have to use common sense, logic, and reason. That's what we got to do. The price of oil, actually right now, when you consider, that's the other thing too, and I covered this in a prior video, there's over 3 billion barrels of oil being stored in offshore platforms and vessels and onshore facilities with those big, gigantic, you've seen them, New Jersey, Cushing, Oklahoma, down in Texas. You've seen all these big storage facilities. They're storing them to keep the prices elevated. That's another price manipulation. That's another market manipulation where there's no free market forces. But you people are against free market. If you were for free markets, if there was a real free market with all of those fundamentals that we are seeing today, were recognized for what they are, well, the price of gas per liter at the pumps right now would be, who knows, could be down to 30, 40 cents per liter. Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you love to have the ability to pull up and fill your car for maybe $20 or $30, then 60, 70? Think of all that extra income that you could use for all the things that you care about. Or to save. Or to donate. Or to do whatever you want to do with it. That's up to you. But stop letting these people steal from you. Stop allowing the central planners, the narrators, the manipulators to dictate and control every aspect of your life and every aspect of the product of your labor. Take some power back. Take some control back. Stand on your own 2 feet. Show some resolve. Show some solidarity with people like myself who keep trying to explain these things to you so you'll be a better person, have a better understanding of economics, social aspects, and the fundamental principles of what liberty and freedom is all about. This is the Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.